And this is Artist on Art. I have the great pleasure of speaking with Eric Ressler and Matt Steele here in Santa Cruz at the KZSC studio. Eric, Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So, Eric, I want to just talk with you for a few minutes because you're somebody that I've been wanting to get on the show since I think I got the radio show, really. Yep. We met 5 years ago at the Next Space, as we mentioned earlier, that co-working fabulous place downtown in Santa Cruz. And you were just starting Cosmic.
Yep.
And it was a different name. You've gone through, it's always been Cosmic.
Yeah, Cosmic has been the common thread, but we've definitely gone through a couple of variations on that throughout the years. But we've finally settled on Designed by Cosmic. Designed by Cosmic.
I really like that. And your website is designedbycosmic.com.
That's correct, yeah.
And you do all different kinds of things. Your team, you make movies, which you're going to be talking about tomorrow night at the Nickelodeon as a part of the Locals. You and Matt are one of the 6 kind of creative teams that's going to be talking tomorrow. And we want to talk a little bit about what we could, maybe some teasers on what we might be able to see tomorrow. And you also, though, you do design, you do branding, you do logo, you do strategy,
We do, and I think, the name really reflects that our core strength and kind of the founding of the company is really design-based. And I think one of the interesting things about how we approach filmmaking is that we see it as design. It is really just a tool to tell stories, and it's a different medium to do that. And, the way that we started producing films in-house was that we were building a lot of brands and websites and helping our clients with their storytelling. And video and film is a very, important and a very efficient way to tell stories. And so that kind of came up as another service offering that we've been developing over the last few years and integrating into our services.
And you work very collaboratively. You're a collaborative type agency, you might say, both within the team of Designed by Cosmic, as well as with your clients.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, I think that any creative organization needs to work collaboratively. I think the best ideas and the most creative solutions usually come when people are bouncing ideas off one another and everyone can bring their strengths to the table. So, there's certainly other ways to do things, but I think a lot of the best work is produced when a bunch of smart people can get in the room together and, each bring their strengths and create something that's collectively better than any one of them could have created on their own.
Nice, exactly. Eric Ressler, talking about his company, Designed by Cosmic. I have to let everybody know my logo was designed by you and your team, and I loved both the process and the end result. It was wonderful. I get so many compliments on my logo and my website, and it's great that you're working with Matt Steele, because Matt has he's kind of the messaging guy, right? Also, but Matt, you have filmmaking. You come from a film studies background, Hollywood.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, it's kind of a natural that I end up working with a lot of graphic designers. My background is in film. I went to film school, but I went to the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. So I went to design school to learn film. So hanging with designers is a natural for me.
What would you say is the difference, possibly, with filmmaking from a design aspect? It's interesting because we were talking with Doug Ferris, where he kind of comes from this. I see him as kind of a post-production. Like he comes at from, what Chris McGilroy called him was a visual filmmaker, which is an interesting thing.
Right, it being a visual medium and all.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Right. But I see his work with a lot of really beautiful images that have been post-produced, that have been affected, as opposed to a verite type style where you just grab the camera and run and show it the way it is, which is a little more how I do it with my videos of documenting this radio show and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I guess that's a vague question, but am I helping kind of?
Yeah, I could take a stab at that. I think that if you look at the components of what we do when we're producing films and when we're conceptualizing and strategizing films, it's probably not any different than a typical production company. So I think maybe the difference would be mainly a philosophical difference in that as designers, we produce art, but the art has to be functional. It has to serve a purpose, and it has to tell a story effectively, which I guess is, similar to all filmmaking. So I don't know that it's really much different in the nuts and bolts. It might just be more of a philosophical difference or kind of a core way of thinking and being able to relate and associate all of the design work that we do and our background in design work and approaching filmmaking in that way as well.
Well, what I think is interesting, Eric, is that I asked you what is one of your favorite filmmakers, and you say Wes Anderson. And Wes Anderson, to me, comes from a very stage design perspective. Like he makes miniature
look designed.
Yeah,
he creates miniatures of what the set is going to look like, and he uses space and architectural space in a way that you know that's him. And the same thing with Kubrick, who was another film. Kubrick did space like nobody else. I mean, he could create an emotion just by the space.
Yep.
And whether it's like huge wide view or down that hall and those little girls
totally.
Right. I'm talking about the little twins in The Shining, which was one of the scariest movies and one of the best, definitely. Matt, who are some of your people that you kind of see as enjoying when you watch their films?
I watch a lot of horror, so enjoying films sometimes. But in terms of, I really like Jim Jarmusch's work. I'm a big fan of Wim Wenders, who not a lot of Americans know who he is.
He did the with the angels.
There's an American version of it as well. But he's who else? Ridley Scott. I'm a big fan of Ridley Scott. Always have been.
So what would those directors I see as having a pretty big question that they're exploring with their movies. Like Wim Wenders seems to be driven, the movies that I've seen by him, he's driven by creating a philosophical world, a world in which you're exploring the philosophies of death, of life, of time.
Right, well, what it is to be human.
Exactly. Yeah. Ridley Scott also, what it is to be human, even though, it's with aliens and stuff.
Right. Blade Runner is the quest of what is it to be human. That's right. The whole point of that movie.
Right. And do you let the turtle just stand on its back when you're in the desert, or do you flip it over?
Or not.
The empathy question. So we're talking about design. We're talking about design by Cosmic here today at Artist on Art. And the reason I've had the pleasure of having Matt Steele and Eric Ressler, both of Design by Cosmic team, is because they're going to be showing and giving a brief talk tomorrow at the Locals. Again, playing at the Nickelodeon. Presenting at the Nickelodeon. It's a co-production of Event Santa Cruz and Santa Cruz Film Festival. What are you guys going to be talking about tomorrow?
I think that we're mainly going to be showing. We have, I think, 12 minutes slotted for showing our work, and then 2 to 3 to kind of answer questions and talk about our work. But I think that really we just wanted to sample some of the variety of the work that we've produced for some of our clients and some of our own personal projects, and hopefully to showcase how some of our design thinking translates into the visuals of film. And I think Matt has some stuff to add to that as well.
Yeah, we're sort of the outliers in terms of the group of 6 because we're not strictly a production company. We're not strictly a film production house. Because we do film and video as part of greater design projects mostly, we have a slightly different perspective. So the kinds of things that we're showing are, some of them are very much focused like directly at the web. And so it's, so we're showing a bunch of complete smaller pieces as opposed to like little clips of longer productions or something that we've done.
And Eric, you talk about filmic. It's a word that was brought up by Doug Ferris when he was talking with Chris McGilvray, and I think he was talking about the technology and how there's video and then there's film. And so how do you define filmic? What is it about that?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of ways to define it, and I think probably, as with all things creative, it's a compilation of a lot of smaller parts that make up a greater whole or a greader experience. That there's a lot of different things that can create a filmic look. When you think about a filmic look in Hollywood, it can be the use of cranes, or it can be even the shutter speed on the camera, or the way that a Steadicam operator frames the scene or composes the scene. So I think it's a lot of different things that create a filmic look. I think maybe if I tried to tie it all together, I think it's kind of a mix of production value and artistic thinking visually in the way that stories are told and the way that things are presented throughout the scenes in the films.
Yeah, a big piece of making something look filmic is always lighting, right? I mean, when you look at something that's amateuristic, almost the first thing that you're noticing, even if you're not a professional, is the lighting. Like flat, boring lighting tells you it's amateur production. Once you start controlling the light, you're starting to get a filmic look.
There you go. Shortcut to all those budding filmmakers out there. You got to have good sound and you got to have good light.
Yeah, those two are definitely key.
Yeah. So, when we look at your work, Cosmic by Design, tomorrow, what do you think people are going to take away from it?
I don't know. I think partially we're curious to see that. We get a lot of different responses from our work. A lot of people have been kind of impressed at how quickly we've grown from a video and photo side of things within the agency, because we haven't been doing it for collectively through the company as long. Matt has a lot of background in film and video in general. And I'm entirely self-taught, and I end up handling a lot of the cinematography on our shoots. So that's kind of my nature. I'm also self-taught when it comes to design and all things that I do professionally. But I think in terms of what kind of reactions are we going to get, I think we're kind of curious to see as well. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're showing a pretty broad range of things that we do. So, I expect sort of a broad range of reactions. Some of it's really fast, and some of it's, kind of a little bit aggressive, and, some of it's a lot more slower and calm and, sort of very Santa Cruz-based stuff.
Yeah, there's a pretty wide variety of emotions throughout the pieces, and I think we kind of chose the pieces that we're showing tomorrow to kind of hit on some of those different ways of telling stories, or how film can affect people's emotions, and how that you can use that to more effectively tell the story.
Well, having the privilege and honor to be able to see you go through the last 5 years and change and teach yourself, which I think is a tremendous, one of those wonderful qualities that I value about you, Eric, is that you've taught yourself. You taught yourself how to make web design, how to make movies, you've built this wonderful collaborative company without what a lot of people would have, schooling with. Right. And so your pieces, like I remember the first time I saw something that you did, I think it was just a shot that you did out in the woods, where it was a rolling view of the trees. There's something very quiet and there's something very meditative about your work that has maintained itself through the other pieces that I've had the privilege to see of your work. Is that coming from your desire to use film? Is that coming from...
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if that's even necessarily intentional. I do a lot of personal photography and videography just as a hobby outside of the commercial stuff that we do at Cosmic. And personally, I'm very drawn to nature, and I'm drawn to the natural beauty of, Northern California, and, both from, all of the state parks and the beautiful surroundings here to some of the city life up in SF. And I've explored a lot of that through my own personal projects. If it's come into our client work, there may be certain projects where that kind of aesthetic was called for in the greater storytelling, and that may be intentional. But, I'd imagine that some of that just comes across naturally as we're creating things, and especially as I'm framing things and composing things through the lens, there's probably some of that just kind of comes in inherently.
That's wonderful, folks. You get to see Eric Ressler's work with Matt Steele and designed by Cosmic. Cosmic by Design?
No, you got it right. It's designed by Cosmic.
Designed by Cosmic.com, folks. Tomorrow, May 17th, at 7 o'clock at the Nickelodeon. Matt and Eric and some other people from your team will be talking.
Yeah, I think most of us will be there, and some extended family and friends as well. So we're going to show up with the crew.
Yeah, and there'll be tickets available at the door, but you could also go to santacruzfestival.org. Matt Steele, Eric Ressler, thank you so much for coming up today and talking with us. It's gone by too quick, folks, but please stay tuned for Highway 61. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to thank Vanya Benavides for live tweeting and posting on Facebook during this show today. Thanks to all my guests. Please stay tuned and enjoy your day, everybody.